you can spot pretty quickly someone that is just inquiring about your knowledge versus someone that actually wants to provide something of value to you before they're asking something of you.
Correct.
And I think having that mindset is what will set you up for success in your career, whether it's, getting into the business or whether it's getting a deal done on down the line when you're in the business.
Welcome to Beyond the Blueprint, powered by Contractors, Closers, and Connections, Orlando. Join me for in-depth interviews with some of the top commercial real estate and development executives in the industry. We uncover their success stories, their strategies, and their lessons learned along the way. Gain valuable insight whether you're a seasoned pro or just starting out. Beyond the Blueprint, I'm your host, Branson Bowen, and we are here for episode 2 with Chuck Hollis at Third Wave Development. Make sure you like and subscribe to the video if you like this content and you want more valuable in the commercial real estate and development industry. Chuck, we're sitting down for part 2. Let's get into it.
Indeed. Let's go.
So the first thing, I want to kind of jump into, obviously, in episode 1, we talked a little bit about your origin story, where you came from, how you got to getting to launching Third Wave in COVID and kind of celebrating your 3rd year in October. So, the first thing I want to get into is your network, right? So
Indeed.
How, obviously we said earlier that this industry is a people business. And so surrounding yourself with individuals that are, important, not only from a relational standpoint, but also from where your career may traject into.
Correct.
How early on in your career, whether it be when the first time you're in Orlando, whether it's Illinois or now being in Orlando, did you kind of seek out, did you ever have mentors? Did you seek out mentors? How did you establish those relationships and who they were going to be?
That's an easy one. So moving from UCF, and UCF was an excellent education and learning experience, and my instructors there, professors, they provided introductions to folks throughout the community that really were a catalyst to me. And so, as I mentioned, an appraisal internship that I was working with, we were working on, several $100 million of sale leaseback transactions with Darden restaurants.
Mm-hmm.
And so pretty formative experience.
Sure.
When you're, in your 20s and you're seeing numbers of that type. But then I chose construction as the basis of my path, and met some folks at Syntex Homes. And ultimately that was my first job out of college. So, Ed Cassick, Brett Lundequam, those folks that were in Syntex at that time, little did I know then, but we just really connected. We got along. And so I started out superintendent, Syntex Homes, and the culture there was unbelievable. And I'll tell a story of trying to get a home through frame inspection. And this is in a new community in South Orlando. And what I learned about leadership through Syntex Homes, along with, all of the other folks that were in that company, it was just the guys that were in that company at that time are still friends 20 years later, and we get together regularly. So, but one story is I was trying to get a house through frame inspection, and Ed Cassick came to help me at 6 p.m. on a Friday night because the inspector was so tough as nails that he made me wait that long for this house that I had to. It was like a must get done type of situation. And my boss showed up to help me. And so understanding the power of what those folks can do for you, that was when it really sort of clicked for me.
With the value of the relationships.
Correct.
Yeah.
And all of the folks connected to, that team, that company, et cetera.
Right.
And so again, this is before social media. This is before a lot of the different components that folks utilize today. it was the way we did it then.
Sure.
And it was earned, and
Right.
it was, trust given, or, trust, given through, having earned it.
Sure. So what would you say to like a newer, whether it's a broker or someone that's just getting into the industry that's looking for, whether it's a mentor or some type of guidance of someone who has already been there and done what they're wanting to do that maybe has limited time? What would you say to someone that's trying to seek out that guidance, how to approach that, how to pick out other people, and what could they do to try to get connected to those people?
I can tell you how I've done it, and it may or may not work for others,
Sure.
and I still do it today. So, take for example, site work on a construction project, a development project. Site work is a key component to the driver of cost, and so what I have done is I have volunteered to go and work for the site contractor if they're willing to have somebody in their team out there on, say, a Saturday. I'll go work. I'll be a laborer. And so I may not be at that level typically in my career, but I will be a laborer just to help them move the project forward. I
Right.
mean, obviously there's a challenge of labor in the construction industry
Sure.
in general. And so add value, even if it's that simple. I'll go, if you're an analyst, I'll go analyze your deal for you, and maybe I come up with something that looks a little bit different from what your analysis sort of projected. And so if you can seek to add value, that's going to show somebody that you really care about it, and you're not just out for, the free advice, so
Sure.
to speak.
Sure.
And
How would you like if someone's trying to figure out how can they add value to someone and they don't really necessarily know how, what would be the best approach to try to figure that out?
we have to research. You have
Yeah.
to think about what they're working through, what they're working on, and what the challenges might be.
Right.
And so, number one, if you're doing that, you're showing that individual that you're putting yourself in their shoes. You've conducted enough research to understand the components that they're dealing with, and how you might be able to help them address it. And through that whole process, you've figured out a whole different component of the chain
Sure.
that, really makes up what it is that they do.
Sure. And then you can actually, in my opinion, you can generate some type of conversation that's revolved around that, that will allow that relationship to kind of build a small foundation.
When you show that type of effort,
Yeah.
what do you think the person's going to do?
Yeah, right.
They're going to say, wow, I
Yeah.
like that guy.
Yeah.
And that's actually how Braden Curry of our team and I met. Is I was trying to mentor him and help him land, a position coming out of UF. And as we continued to meet and I introduced him to different folks, he said, hey, what can I do? How can I help you? And at one point, I finally just decided there is no way I'm letting anybody
him
else,
go.
take this talent.
Yeah, right.
That belongs within our team.
Yeah.
And from then it was, just a seamless transition.
That's
So it's a perfect example, a perfect segue into how you can go from being, either, a college student or new in the industry. Just figure out what you can do to work hard.
Yeah.
And be genuine about it.
Today's episode is brought to you by Bryce Knuth of Insurance Office of America. As a contractor or real estate owner in Florida, you've likely experienced the impact of rising insurance premiums year after year. With the challenging insurance marketplace, having a specialist who focuses on your industry is critical now more than ever before. If you'd like a second set of eyes on your current insurance program or don't have a relationship with your current broker, please contact Bryce Knuth at 407-697-6944 via call or text, or email bryce.knuth@ioausa.com. Don't let rising insurance costs catch you off guard. Reach out to Bryce today. So let's kind of dive into that a little bit deeper. So someone who's newer in the industry, they're coming out of college, whether it's they're an analyst, they just graduated in real estate, or they're just interested in real estate. So our key here is we want to be able to empower the next generation of commercial real estate professionals, development professionals.
About which we are very passionate.
Right. And so what would you say would be something that would be important for them to kind of focus on and look out for early on to make that decision on whether or not they want to actually pursue the commercial real estate industry first?
Yeah. And one of the things that I figured out over time is that the vast majority of students in their educational path, they don't understand the global nature of what real estate opportunity is. Mm-hmm. When I say global, I mean both, in practice areas, but then also, of course, internationally, but specifically within the practice areas component, whether it's finance or construction or development or, analysis, et cetera. Understanding those components and what you may be interested in most, I think is the first key driver. Mm-hmm. And when I was that age, I didn't really understand what it was that I wanted to do. Right. I just kind of tried out a few different areas to hone in on what might be, an area of passion.
Sure.
So
as they're kind of progressing through that journey and they've found an area that they want to go into, would you suggest that they reach out to a company and just try to do an internship? Or would you say, okay, let's just, because, you can't just go get work at an architectural firm if you don't have an architectural degree, right?
Of course.
So how do they go about figuring out what exactly it is that they want to do after they've tried multiple things?
I think once you've figured out the thing that interests you most, mm-hmm. most folks that are in that segment of the industry, if you reach out to them and you show them that you really want to work hard to learn, they're going to be very receptive of that. And so, the networking events, whether that be NAOP or CCIM, et cetera, people want to help the younger generation move up. And especially from my perspective, I came from, as I've told you before, of little means. And so, I want to help show the next generation how to get there.
Sure.
And I think if your message is crafted carefully when you approach folks of that type and that caliber, you'll find a willing audience.
Yeah, I would resonate with that a lot. My mentor back in Louisiana was a commercial developer, and whenever I was like, okay, look, this is the industry that I want to be in, the first thing I did was reach out to him and was like, what do you do? Right?
How does all this work?
And so, you start and you kind of just start to slowly figure it out. And his first thing was go get your real estate license. Yeah. You go do that. And we all know, it doesn't teach you anything about commercial real estate, right?
Right.
And so you start to figure out little bits and pieces, but from the majority, especially early on, majority of the people wanted to help. And I think that, kind of to your point, having that genuineness up front is very important. And then also that value, because the reality is no one has all the time in the world. And it's very difficult when you have a bunch of people trying to take to try to sift through that. And so I think if you layer genuineness on top of trying, the reality is that most of those guys, they know where you're at early on, and you're just trying to help.
Of course, because they've been in your shoes.
Correct. Correct.
And so they know your mindset, more importantly. And for them to understand, and you can spot pretty quickly someone that is just inquiring about your knowledge, mm-hmm. versus someone that actually wants to provide something of value to you before they're asking something of you.
Correct.
And I think having that mindset is what will set you up for success in your career, whether it's, getting into the business or whether it's getting a deal done on down the line
Sure.
when you're in the business.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, it goes a long way for sure. And making those decisions upfront in your career, I think, in my opinion, one of the bigger challenges, especially in the industry, is getting into, whether you're a broker or you trying to work for a development firm as an analyst or something like that, and not fully understanding what you're getting into. You're almost kind of backtracking, and you're just trying to figure it out. It's like drinking water from a fire hose, and you can't really figure it out. So I think doing those things up front is very valuable for the longevity of your career, because you've kind of done from a development term, your due diligence.
Due diligence.